And to talk about dream and reality, I mean, I want to ask a question on Cabral's theory of revolutionary violence, but I want to link it to the question of his ideas of culture. I mean, one thing that I find very interesting about Cabral is that he wants to sort of shy away from understanding culture as this immutable, unchanging thing. So, like Fanon, he also wants to think of culture as something that is dependent on a material reality, and that material reality is also reciprocally dependent on the cultural reality that it helps construct. And sometimes I think Cabral actually is correct in the sense that it's almost as if people's attachment to indigenous identity arises out of the circumstances they find themselves in, where they feel alienated from the prevailing social reality, and whether that alienation is from the imposition of a foreign culture during colonialism, or that alienation is from capitalist social relations. People cling on to these cultures as a way to find sort of meaning and security in a world that is almost all the time hostile to them. So I think he's correct on that front. I think for me, the front where he was maybe mistaken was his answer to how to unify these people who are in search of something that can give them meaning and can give them identity was through the revolutionary struggle. And his conception of the revolutionary struggle and using violence as a part of it was instrumentalist. So unlike, Fanon and Sartre, who were also writing about this at the time, he thought of it as a means to this end. And the means to the end was a national culture, and you used armed struggle to get to that national culture. So I'm curious to hear, what are your thoughts on his conception of revolutionary violence? And you mentioned earlier that he was a bit of a pacifist. Why was his default sort of preference for waging peace?
I think Cabral's generation, I think they were pushed war. If you read the earlier writings by Cabral in the late 50s and mid 50s, he was not interested in independence, because the concept of independence was not that. For a lot of people, this generation in Angola, São Tomé, Cape Verde, Mozambique, the idea of independence was not there, particularly in Cape Verde for the generation of Cabral, because they were Portuguese. They spoke Portuguese. They had all these Portuguese references and so on. So the idea that Cape Verde, like these small islands, could be independent from Portugal was not there. It was afterwards when Cabral was went to Portugal, did his studies, met other people from Angola and Mozambique and so on. Particularly when the Cold War, when places in Africa, African countries started to become independent, Ghana, 57, and then Guinea Conakry, and so on. That was when they start talking about national independence. Only before 56, 50 was not possible. And they tried to negotiate with Salazar, but Salazar was, how can I negotiate with terrorists? It was not even possible to negotiate, because they were not considered someone you can negotiate with, because the whole idea to negotiate with someone was humanity you deny was not on the table for people like Salazar. So they had the support of China, Soviet Union, and so on. And they were becoming illegal with no means to subsist in Portugal and so on. So I really think that they were pushed into radicalization. And we are talking about the 60s, right? Where Fanon, you could write about violence back in the days in a way that it would put us in trouble if you write about violence in the same way. So there was like a sort of because of the Cold War, on one hand Soviet Union and US and so on. They were like opportunities, But Cabral was very, very aware of that, you know. And I think that was the reason he tried to find the balance, you know, between like violence and what was necessary to bring independence to Guinea, you know, and do something else, and build a national culture, bring education and health to Guinean and Cape Verde population and so on. So that was like the sort of trap, you know, a lot of people was caught in back in these years.